This is day 9 of Advent of Create 2023, and this challenge is called Mirage Maintenance. You ride the camel through the sandstorm, and stop where the ghost maps told you to stop. The sandstorm subsequently subsides, somehow seeing you standing at an oasis. The camel goes to get some water, and you stretch your neck. As you look up, you discover what must be yet another giant floating island. This one made of metal. That must be where the parts to fix the sand machines come from. There's even a hang glider partially buried in the sand here. Once the sun rises and heats up the sand, you might be able to use the glider and the hot air to get all the way up to the metal island. While you wait for the sun to rise, you admire the oasis hidden here in the middle of the desert. It must have a delicate ecosystem. You might as well take some ecological readings while you wait. Maybe you can report any environmental instabilities you find to someone so the oasis can be around for the next sandstorm-worn traveller. You pull out your handy oasis and sand instability sensor and analyze your surroundings. The oasis produces a report of many values and how they are changing over time, the puzzle input. Each line in the report contains the history of a single value, for example, numbers 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and so on. To best protect the oasis, your environmental report should include a prediction of the next value in each history. To do this, start by making a new sequence from the difference at each step of your history. If that sequence is not all zeros, repeat the process, using the sequence you just generated as the input sequence. Once all of the values in your latest sequence are zeros, you can extrapolate what the next value of the original history should be. So in the above dataset, the first history is 0 to 15. Because the values increase by 3 each step, the first sequence of differences that you generate will be 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Note that this sequence is one fewer value than the input sequence, because at each step, it considers 2 numbers from the input. Since these values aren't all 0, repeat the process. The value differ by 0 at each step, so the next sequence is 0, 0, 0, 0. This means you have enough information to extrapolate the history. Visually, these sequences can be arranged like this. So you've got all the numbers, then the difference between these two is 3, 3, so on, and then 0. To extrapolate, start by adding a new 0 to the end of your list of zeros, because the zeros represent differences between the two values above them. This also means there is now a placeholder in every sequence above it. You can start filling in placeholders from the bottom up. A needs to be the result of increasing 3, the value to its left, by 0, the value below it. This means A must be 3. Finally, you can fill in B, which needs to be the result of increasing 15, the value to its left, by 3, and the value below, or 18. So the next value of the first history is 18. Finding all zeros for the second one requires an additional sequence. So we've got these numbers here, then that goes down to 1, then 0, then we do this one, well, we start off with just these ones here, then we add the 0, then we do this plus this is this plus this is this, and this plus this is this. And then the same thing continues, we have this first one, so then 2, 0, 2, 8, 15, 8, 23, 45, 23, 68. And then when you add them together, you get 114. Okay, so that seems, I think it's straightforward, maybe. So we'll chuck that into here. We'll start off with total equals 0. Then we'll do for line in input, we'll have original equals, this will be int num for num in line dot split. And then just to make sure that works, we'll print out original. That works. So we've now got all our numbers. Now we'll create, what should we do for this? So we'll do differences equals list. Actually, so we'll do differences, this will be list of list. Then we'll do for num in original, for index num in original, starting from index 1 onwards, it will be num plus, it'll be num minus original index minus 1. So now let's print out in differences to see if that's correct. That wasn't correct. I forgot to do enumerate. So that's obviously not correct, it should be 12. And just so we can clearly see what's happening, we'll also include original there. Okay, so this should actually just be index, because although this is starting at index 1, it's essentially being treated as a new list, so index is actually 0. So this is index 1, and then using this it's already the minus 1, so you can do that. Got all 3s, good. Okay, so now what we need to do is continue running this as long as all the differences between the numbers are not 0. So while any num does not equal 0 for num in differences minus 1, we then do same thing here, but then differences dot append, and we make sure we append only that single list. So now let's see what that produces. Okay, well it's not working. Oh, that's because I did original instead of differences -1. Now I'll run that. Yeah, that seems to have worked. Cool. So what we need to do now, for I in range, differences, length of differences, -1 to 0. This will be, actually firstly we'll do differences -1 dot append 0, and then we start on the second one, then differences I dot append, actually we can simplify this, just put it all into the same one. So what are these called? Sequence. So we'll do sequences equals this. Then we do, while there's not any zeros, we do everything on sequences. And we'll just do that on sequences. And just to make sure that works, let's print sequences. That is working, cool. So we append 0 to there. Then we do sequences 1, or I, dot append. This is sequences I minus 1 plus sequences I minus 2. Then that should go through and add them all up. Now if we go to sequences, it doesn't look like it added it. Just make sure it's running here. Okay, that's not running at all. Step, okay, -1, maybe that's what I needed to do. Nope. So I guess let's just print, I will print out what this number is, I guess. Okay, that's definitely not working. That's someone 18 got there. Okay, I did -1 instead of +1. Yeah, so let's try that. Okay, so it is working, but now we need to change this to the outer number is excluded. So now it should work. Oh, except that didn't, it just put the same number. So let's print both of these numbers and see why it's not working. Okay, so we'll print before and afters just so we can visualize it. So we start off with this. So I've already added this. So then we go to here. Okay, this should just be the end. Oh, okay, yeah. So in the diagram it's -1 and this, but at this point in time, this is the end one. That's why. So now, well, okay, I forgot to do the -1 there. So now we do, I forgot to total plus equals sequences 0, -1, and then we return total. 114, was that the number? Yes, it is. So we'll grab our input and hopefully it will work straight away on that. We've got this number, so let's now submit it. And that was correct. So on to part 2. Of course, it would be nice to have even more history included in your report. Surely it's safe to just extrapolate backwards as well, right? For each history, repeat the process of finding differences until the sequence of differences is entirely 0. Then rather than adding a 0 to the end and filling in the next values of each previous sequence, you should instead add a 0 to the beginning of your sequence of zeros, then fill in new first values for each previous sequence. In particular, here is what the third example history looks like when you extrapolate back in time. So, how does this work? So you have 0, 2, 0. The difference between, so this minus this is 2, this minus this is -2, this minus -2 is 5. Okay. Adding the new values on the left side of each sequence from bottom to top eventually reveals the new leftmost history value 5. Doing this for the remaining example data above results in previous values of -3 for the first history and 0 for the second history. Adding all 3 new values together produces 2. Analyze your OASIS reports again, this time extrapolating the previous value for each history. What is the sum of these extrapolated values? Okay, so I think it might just be the same, but now we are taking away. So let's look through for line input. Okay, so this is the one where we're just building it up, then now we need to go backwards. So although technically the pyramid isn't going to look the same, we're just going to continue using the last index for all of this. So for iron range, sequences, continue with that, but this will be, that'll be -1, but then this will be 0. Although actually it will be this minus this one. Just print sequences 5, 0, -3, and that returned 2. So if we now put our actual input back in and run it, 928. Cool, that was the correct answer. So basically with the first one, You just need to, instead of adding them together, just minus them. So cool, that is the end of Day 9 of Advent of Code 2023. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you can continue watching me complete the Advent of Code 2023 challenges.